What age were you when you came out, and how did that happen?
It was just after I got out of high school, just when I started school at Berkeley. And it was actually relatively uneventful.
So, is it just my opinion is because you don't change as a person whether you're out or not, and I think that for some people there's a switch that happens. They become, geisha star or something, and you continued to cut fish or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's like you were doing your thing.
Well, I wasn't cutting fish at that time. I was going to college, but it was a relatively easy environment to be out in, right?
Yeah.
Because I started Berkeley in 1970. Just a few years before, there'd been this tremendous social upheaval. People were talking about sexual revolution. It was pretty much okay to be sexual in the ways that you wanted to be sexual.
Wow.
At least in the environment where I was, right, in San Francisco or Berkeley. In fact, among leftists, movement kids, it was almost fashionable to be bisexual. Because people wanted to move away from conventional forms of relationships, like heterosexual coupling. And so people were very open to the idea that you could have a number of partners and they could be whatever gender, multiple genders or whatever, right?
Wow.
The more liberal, the better, basically.
Yeah, exactly, right. So it was an easy environment to be out in, and my parents were skeptical, let's say, but not hostile. So
Skeptical meaning that they would still, like, every now and then throw some hints that this girl likes you, or maybe you should.
Yeah,
the typical stuff.
And my parents, our family was an immigrant family. My grandparents came over here in the 1920s. My parents were born here. But like a lot of immigrant families, their family social life revolved around like immigrant institutions. In this case, since we were Greek, it revolved around social things. Okay. So they kept introducing me to the daughters of their friends, in expectation that eventually I would get married to one of them, which was the standard thing to do. Didn't happen that way. Didn't happen that way even with my brother, because he's straight. He married a woman, but she turned out to be Norwegian.
Now you're, speaking of your culture, and you're somebody that I would come into work and you'd be reading the Greek news from, and it's in Greek, or you would say I know what these people are talking about, this or that. Like, how much has that culture played into your personality? Because you're not in Greece, right?
Yeah, well,
you're
that's
here.
Something for a psychiatrist to answer, not for me.
Why would you? What do you look at culture and race as? Is it something that's extremely important in your life, or do you think? Because for me, I wake up every day as a gay man. I don't really. Although it's my privilege, I think I'm supposed to say it's my privilege to say that. So be it, but I wake up and think in the terms of gay, not by what the rest of the white people are doing. That, do you feel that it's similar, or do you have certain... Because I don't know, I get in the side of the head of a person who's racist. It's
right.
like...
I realize that I'm a gay man.
Right.
But Greekness played maybe a bigger role in my life than other kinds of ethnicities might play in somebody else's life. Because if you're Scotch-Irish descent or your German descent, well, you fit right in because that's what the dominant culture is. But when I was growing up, my mom's mom lived with us, even though our primary language was English, in our house we spoke Greek.
Wow.
And we had contacts with family back in Greece.
So it was an active thing, basically.
It was an active thing, yeah. And
so I was asking these things just so a little bit of background is that I've found with my mom being German and the same thing, people forget because we're not Latino, because we're not Asian, that there's still immigrant families that are white.
I'll tell you an interesting thing. We weren't always white. In February, I went down to San Francisco because we finally came to the point where we had to sell my mom's house. She had a bad fall. She realized that it was not safe for her to live by herself in that house anymore, so we sold it. And that meant that we had to go through all the stuff that had accumulated in the last 50 years in that house and figure out what we wanted to keep and what we wanted to get rid of. Among those things were my grandfather's old papers, his citizenship papers, and he was a maritime engineer, so he had various documents to get him in and out of ports, right? All of those documents had a section to list race, and most of the time it didn't say white, it said Greek. So
you're looked at.
Actually, we did not qualify as being white folks.
Interesting. Why is that? I'm ignorant on it. Is it that?
Well, because we weren't Northern European.
Oh, okay. The true white, right?
Yeah. I mean, like real white people.
That's great. I kind of got that when I was over in Greece. It was like a different kind of white people. It sounds so racist to say that, but it was. But it was. No, it really is though. It's like, and they all have a cousin who's gonna bring you somewhere, and don't listen to them. It's true.
No, that's true. You get in a cab, you tell the cab driver where you want to go. He says, "No, I'll take you to a better place."
I'll take you where you really want to
go. My cousin has a bar just down the street.
Yep. And then there's the restaurant down the street, the hotel down the street. Yeah. And I was on the island, so everybody had a cousin. But
or they'll ask you, you're American, where are you from? You'll say, "Oh, Seattle." Chicago, my cousin.
It's true. It just doesn't matter where you say. It goes back to, I found it extremely interesting. Very the men aggressive too, like aggressive. It wasn't a place for punks. Let's put it that way. You were gonna tell the Greek guys what was up. They'd line up on the pier to watch us come in, just to size us up. Right away. Which means I like those kind of ports. I thought they were more fun, but you've done some traveling. You've been over to Greece and all that. What when you see the rainbow flag, when you see that wherever you go, what does it mean to you?
That's a good question. And you may not see it very much in Greece, right? Because in Greece is peculiar because Greece is very gender segregated, and it's much more common even for straight Greek men to go out with their other male friends than it is to go out with their wives or girlfriends. In Athens, they're more kind of European than Greek, and people go out with their women folk. But
that sounds hideous.
Yeah, but in smaller places, people typically go out with their male friends. So if you're not out, it's a very easy environment to be gay.
Gotcha. Because you don't have to hide
Because
as
you
much.
don't have to hide it. You're out with your male friends. Big deal. Everybody does.
So put up the flag calls attention.
Put up the flag calls attention, right. And, there have been a lot of very recent cases of gay bashings in Athens, mostly carried out by neo-Nazis.
Yeah.
With the collusion of the local police.
And that's like South America too. It's the same.
Yeah.
It's weird how that Nazi thing has jumped continents and really like taken hold. Like Peru, there's like apparently a ton. So come to think of it, when I was in Greece, there was only one bar and it was one of those sticker decals.
Oh,
it wasn't
right.
an actual flag, and it was called Berlin. The bar was called Berlin. Very strange, but there wasn't a lot of flags.
That's because they think that all Germans are gay. No, I'm serious.
They do.
Why is that?
Well, because a lot of gay German tourists go to Mykonos.
Which coincidentally is where I was at, so perhaps you have a point.